What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm one of the hosts, Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. The triumphant trio returns. Dave, what's going on?
Not much. 75 more wins, and I can manage to my free $10 bet can earn me about $9.50. So the Buccos won it in extra innings. I figured, hey, if I had a free MLB bet, I might as well drop it on the Pirates for the whole season, so it gives me a reason to watch.
So what did you bet?
I bet a $10 free voucher on the Pirates going over 75.5 wins.
Oh, I think it's a pretty good bet. I think they'll be around 80. That's a good bet. Bryan Davis, welcome to the club. How's it going?
Great, guys. Wow, they have a bullpen, and I know this isn't a pirate show, so I'm going to just stop.
It's
but I
had
a blast watching it today, and I might go to Washington's opening day just to see the Buccos on Monday.
I don't watch. I just follow it online.
They have a hell of a bullpen. They have no starting pitching when Mitch Keller gets roughed up like he does and getting the pitch counts too high and base running still sucks. There's plenty to complain about with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but we're not here to talk about that. They win. It's like I texted my dad and brother 162-0. Here we go.
But Jeff, we should be gloating at going 2-0 in the over-under.
Why? What was it last week?
It was 1.5, and it's 0.
Did you and I say over?
We said under.
Wait. How is that?
One of those players has been announced by the Steelers or is on their roster on their website. That doesn't. They're not on the team yet.
Look here, loophole Jones.
2-0 now, baby.
Well, that is a loophole for sure. That is a loophole. But yeah, man, it's
sorry, bad. I couldn't help it.
Well, I was going to start there anyways. I've been able to talk about this on my Let's Ride podcast. Dave got to touch on this with the Stat Geek podcast this morning on the audio side, which, by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, maybe you're a new subscriber and you didn't know we have podcasts that are outside of the realm of YouTube. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. There's so much more than just what you see there. Anywhere where you get your podcast, search Steelers or Steel Curtain Network, you'll find us. That's where you'll see Dave's Stat Geek. You'll see Brian's Bad Language, my Let's Ride podcast, and a whole bunch of others. But Bryan, you're the only one that hasn't had a chance to talk about my gosh, it was 4 players in 2 days on Monday and Tuesday. What's your thoughts on the new acquisitions for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
You know what? I had a show last week.
Language, a little bit. You didn't get all of it.
About doing the dirty work.
Yeah.
And dirty work week. And that was kind of dirty work week. Now, we're excited. I mean, I'm definitely excited mostly about Cordero Patterson because I think the change in the kickoff role might actually benefit having a gifted kick returner like that. And so I'm sure they're going to be using him in that capacity. Don't expect huge numbers because you still have other running backs. You still have other weapons on that team. But I just like the fact that the guy is there and they are making moves to go ahead and win now. And you might not think that they're sexy enough, and that's fine, but all these moves are great. Quez Watkins, that's a bargain. Their value signs. Now, a guy like Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, one of them's probably not going to be on the team on the final 53-man roster. But we saw a little bit of this from Omar Khan last year. Braden Fajoko's a good example that, a lot of these signings, they're not going to stick forever. Now, Fajoko spent most of his time on the practice squad, but when he was first picked up, they thought that he was a legitimate possible starter on the defensive line last year. So there's some things here that you're going to have guys that are signings that didn't work, and then ones that exceed expectations, and they're putting themselves in position and they're doing the dirty work.
Yeah. Dave, as you've had some time to let these moves marinate a little bit, what's your take?
You've got to continue to fill out the roster. I think it's interesting because the way the rules set up for the new kickoff, that you have to have at least 9 players as the receiving team up between the 30 and 35-yard line, which means having 2 players back is what you can do. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of them are on the team to see Patterson and Watkins back there. Because if you have two capable guys that could do that, then there you go. It's a long way between now and September when week 1 games happen to know who's really going to be there and who's not. But hey, the whole idea is that they're still adding players as they go. They're not just sitting back and waiting. And these are a lot of the ones I talked about this. I can't even remember where I talked the week before on Stat Geek, when it was how much the Steelers have spent in free agency the last couple of years. There was a lot of signings last year that the guys, their APY, average salary per year, was less than $1.5 million, because you add those other players from outside as well, and the Steelers are getting into that. These are guys, hey, it's really great if they work out, and if they don't, it's not like they were out there banking on these guys to come in and be superstars.
Now, Dave, I saw that the Patterson deal was reportedly 2 years, $6 million. I have not seen any other years. No. Have you, for any of them, years or money? Okay.
Nothing. It's funny because I'm like, oh, well, Kyle Allen. It's Kyle Allen, right? I keep wanting to say, who's the center Bryan wants so bad?
Bryan Allen. I thought it was Bryan Allen, too.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I'm going to say the wrong one. But I was saying, as a quarterback, he might be more. He was in Buffalo on a veteran salary benefit contract last year. So I would not be shocked for him to be back at that amount, which that's what Van Jefferson is here for. Wouldn't be shocked if that's the case for most of these guys. And when it comes to Patterson, as I said on Stat Geek, 2 years, $6 million, that's exactly what Deshaun Elliott was. So you can kind of look at his and say, will they structure it? The only thing they can change is how much they give in each year, and then how much this year is signing bonus versus base salary. And that'll get it. You're looking between 2 and probably not more than, well, I mean, it would be crazy if it was more than $2.5 million towards the salary cap this year from Patterson. And the other guys are probably only looking at a few $100,000 is what they're really going to count after you take in displacement.
Yeah, no, I think it's I thought that Kyle Allen, I heard on a couple other of our shows this week where people were kind of down on that addition. I think he's a good quarterback 3. When you look at, he's played a lot, believe it or not, since he came into the league. When he was with Carolina, played with Washington when Dwayne Haskins was benched, rest in peace. And when you even look at wherever he's gone, I mean, he's a good, serviceable quarterback 3. And that's all he is. Yeah. And that's all they're going to pay him for. Think about what they were paying Mitch Trubisky last year. Like that, it's totally different. And so I thought it was a good addition. And people are saying, well, they're not going to draft a quarterback now. They still might draft a quarterback in the middle to late parts of the draft. But we knew that once they traded for Justin Fields, quarterback really moved down the draft board.
Yes.
That's nothing new. Bryan, any final thoughts on the players that were added?
No, the Kyle Allen thing, I love the fact that happened. You're right, Dave. When I first read the message, I'm thinking they finally pulled the trigger on Bryan Allen. They haven't, but I like what they did. Also, the defensive lineman from Green Bay as well. I think that's good stuff. It just, I'm reiterating, but it just shows that this is a new millennium GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. I do want to get your all's take. Again, I've heard Dave talk about some of this stuff, both on the Scobro Show and Stat Geek. But Bryan, I'll throw it to you first. What are some of your thoughts on some of the changes and the rules that the NFL have put in place this year? Let's start with the kickoff rule that Dave already alluded to. Like it, hate it? What's your thoughts, Bryan?
Well, you know what? I am going to go light on this because I know how passionate Dave is about the reactions to these rules. So I am going to go and be light. But I will say this. These rule changes are done for a reason. And look, I'm sure you're going to go ahead and quote Jack Lambert, the great Jack Lambert. They might as well put skirts on these guys. And then I'm seeing even from former players, the flag football stuff. But hey, how angry are you when one of your guys is injured? How angry are you when Jesse James, who caught that ball, didn't catch the ball? You know what role that they're talking about? And please forgive me, Dave, you might have to help me out on this. I don't know if they completely passed it, but I think they did, or they were talking about it at least, or voting the rule that if you can go ahead and reverse a bad roughing call, or if you pat a guy on the head and it's called roughing the quarterback, that there's a guy in an assistant replay official that could go ahead and overturn that. Is that official?
You know what? I think it was. I'm shocked at the number of rules that were passed that were really glazed over in the media.
So nobody's talking about that, but we're talking
about you get 3 challenges, or no, you don't get 3 challenges. You get 2 missed challenges now. That if you get 1 out of 2 right, you get a third now.
Right.
People aren't talking about that one.
So they're talking about taking the game of football that you love away. It's preserving the game of football, because you know what? We have to change the way we do things with each passing decade. Look, everybody, when we were growing up, everybody said to us, well, in our day, we had it so much worse than you kids. You know what I say to my kids right now? In my day, we had it so much easier than you kids. Because look, even though cell phones are great, you know the problems they cause with these kids? You know the problems. We didn't have to have a drill for not a terrorist attack, but an active shooter attack. We didn't have to have any of this. So rules are put in place to go ahead and help with things. Now, it sometimes hurts the people, makes it tougher for the people that are running the game, and I get that. And I'm not trying to get into an entire political conversation. I'm not at all. But what I'm saying right now is things have to change, and we have to look for the overall good of the game and the player. And when you have a player that has CTE or can't walk and feels like, when Jerome Bettis said, hey, I feel like I was in a car accident after every single game, every Monday I felt like I was in a bad car accident. Wow. You know what? They're making a deal with the devil, sure, when they sign up to play this game. And I get it, but they're doing it for our entertainment. But if it was me playing the game and there's something that might preserve my life longer or have the integrity of the game so I could go to a Super Bowl and not have it ripped away from me, well, then I'm not going to have a problem with that. And I said I wasn't going to go long, and I just did.
And I only asked about I only asked about the kickoff rule.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I will talk only about the kickoff rule, and I like that, because if they're going to bring the kickoff back into the game, then I think that's welcome. I always said, like, the kickoff had become so ceremonial, where it's just like, okay, let's everyone line up for a touchback again. It was just so rare that anyone ever brought the ball out of the end zone that I said, just put the ball at the 25. Just put the ball at the 25, and let's just start from there. Let's eliminate the kickoff altogether. So they want to bring it back into the game. Hey, I'm all for that. The hip drop tackle, players are going to have to adjust. Does it suck? Sure. Did Mike Mitchell have that great soundbite back in 2016 after he got fined for hitting Tyler Eifert over the middle, where he goes, what am I supposed to do? Stop and say, are you ready for me to hit you now? And then I can hit you. And he talked about Tyler Eifert and how if Andy Dalton hadn't thrown such a bad ball, he wouldn't have been in that position to hit him in the way he did. That's never going to end. There's going to be a constant debate about what offense gets away with, what defense gets away with or doesn't get away with. So I'm not about to get into that, open up that can of worms. I thought the NFL, with the kickoff rule in particular, is in the right. And if, by the way, that eye in the sky thing is passed, it's great. That's what we want. We're sick and tired of just get it right. Just get it right. I'm all for if they were to ever to say, like, let's put chips in the footballs and let's kind of eliminate the chain gang. $1 billion industry.
There's already chips in the footballs.
Yeah, I know.
That's how they do the spin rate and everything.
Exactly. So if they can't figure out, like, okay, did the ball get over the line? Let's check. Yes, it did. First down. And that way you don't have 80-year-old men holding sticks and chains in $1 billion industry. Like, I feel like we can move forward with technology a little bit. So
they can put a fake line on the field.
Yeah, they
Why
can.
can't they figure this out? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. I have a lot
any
to say.
Thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Kickoff rule. First thing, I feel I put this in the same category of them moving back the extra point. They took a play that people were using for a bathroom break and have tried to make it get a little bit more through while. And as you said, Jeff, hey, why don't we just put it at the 25 then if we're not going to have anything? Before you take that step, kudos for at least trying something else before you go that route.
It's only a 1 year trial, too. It's only 1 year.
Yes. So give it a shot, see if it works. If it doesn't, they're probably just going to eliminate the play for the most part. So we'll see how it works. We'll see if it works. The NFL. Now, the whole thing with the swivel hip drop, you got to throw that in there. If it's not the swivel hip drop, it's not banned. So there's a difference. Don't ask me what it is.
I was going to say, please enlighten me.
I mean, honestly, if you think about it with the hip drop, the swivel hip drop, it's not that much different from the horse collar, except your arms are around the waist rather than one being up high, pulling them down. Now, that one could wrench your back and do other things there, but it's the whole notion of falling on the legs. And I understand why they're trying to get it out of there. I get it. I do. I think this makes it extremely difficult for the defense to still figure out what can we really do to tackle someone. Yes, that is a good and valid point. I'm more in favor of this coming out, of this being removed, than I am the defenseless receiver. Because a reason a receiver is defenseless is because of their own team's fault. If this happens to you, it's because the defense is doing it to you.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're in a defenseless position, that's a whole different story. But what's driving me angry, so this will be the old man shouting at clouds, as you guys are ready for this, because I already did it in our Slack channel today, is how many times does a rule like this come in and all we hear is it's going to be flag football in 2 years? Okay. I don't know if this is actually true or not. This is coming from my father, who told me this last night. All I can do is tell you what he told me. I can't verify the accuracy. But he said that's exactly what they said back in the early 80s when they eliminated the clothesline tackle. So we're talking about those kind of things. The whole thing with I still call it the James Harrison type hits, because we saw them for a while and how they're taking that away from out of the game, and the horse collar tackle, all these things. And not everyone, sorry, I shouldn't speak in the absolute. So many people are like, why don't you just put flags on them? How many times do we have to say that only to be proven that the game moves on? Okay. You don't have to have the massive overreaction to, this is so terrible. Football is dead. Football is gone. How can we handle this anymore? Because a tackle that takes place once, not even once a game last season, based on the numbers, and yet still injured 15 players. They're saying don't do it. And if you read between the lines, the way they're saying it, they only want officials calling it if it is 100% certain, without a doubt, that's what it is. So in other words, they're telling us, don't call it. If nothing else, we'll fine it. That's what's happening. That's what they're going to do to try to eliminate it. So getting all up in arms and saying football is dead or they're wearing flags, calm the crap down. It's been said however many times when they make a change like this to try to keep players safer. And guess what? Football is still continued to roll on.
But before I throw it to Bryan, I want to basically ask a question. And that is that this rule, though, while I understand it's an adjustment, it's the next phase of the horse collar, as you mentioned. And my question is, as a defender, this only happens when you're in trail position. So let's go back to the poster tackle for this hip drop rule, which was Logan Wilson on Mark Andrews.
I thought you were going to say Vontaze Burfict on Le'Veon Bell.
You could have, but it was the Bengals and Ravens last year that was like, it was on prime time.
Those darn Bengals.
And everyone was watching. And I said it at the time, and I'll say it again. If I'm in trail position in that play with Mark Andrews, if Logan Wilson doesn't try to take him from the top and bring him down, meaning kind of pulling him towards him so that he doesn't go forward, they're like, oh, well, just dive at his feet. He's scoring a touchdown then. He's going to score a touchdown because even if you clip his feet, he's big enough, he's strong enough, his momentum's going to carry him into the end zone. So, and as a defender in trail position, that's the only time where I feel like, man, they are really at a disadvantage now. Because the horse collar was, I'm going to pull you backwards so that you don't go forward. Maybe because you're close to the end zone. You're trying to prevent a scoring play. And so that's the only real thing for me, as when I think about this from a logistical, not narrative perspective or what fans think, but from an actual game perspective. If Minkah Fitzpatrick is trailing a player, what is he going to do if he's near the goal line? And the answer is he can't do anything unless he wants a fine and a potential 15-yard flag. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Every team is going to be facing with this conundrum. You do have the problem, though. Are you going to have those special players, that don't get called with that? Is Myles Garrett going to be called with it? Probably not. He's the chosen son. Is Micah Parsons? Probably not going to get called with it. Will Cam Hayward? Yeah, he will. There's TJ Watt will. So that's the only thing that we can say about it. That somebody mentioned, is it going to be called 100% of the time? I don't think that's the problem. And it goes into the whole Tom Brady got special treatment. And sometimes I wonder if he did. I actually agree with it. I feel like he did. So, I still hold true to what I was saying, that you still have to do whatever you can to extend the life of the player.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
And if I could say one more thing, Brian's exactly right. And you're exactly right, Jeff. It makes it extremely difficult to tackle a player from behind. That's because it's not a very safe thing to do without doing it. It's just the way it is. This whole rule is about rolling up on the back of a player's legs.
Right.
It really is. If you can bring them down, if you can, wrap around their waist or whatever, and you even fall to bring them down, as long as you're not doing it rolling up on the back of their legs, you're going to be fine. So, yeah. I mean, and look at your offensive linemen. How do offensive linemen get hurt more than anything else? Somebody else on the ground, rolling up on the back of their legs. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do to take that out of there, because it's not intentional. This is something intentional, of rolling up on the back of a player in order to tackle them and bring them down. It's going to be difficult, and I don't know how they're going to adjust. But
yeah,
and so I'm not even saying that it's terrible. I mean that it's something that they should have definitely 100% got rid of. I'm more frustrated with your reaction to it.
Right. Yeah, and this kind of reminds me of when the National Football League made the emphasis on running backs outside the tackle box lowering their head into a defender. And that was a potential 15-yard penalty. Fines could be handed out. I think that's still a rule, but it's never.
Have you ever seen the penalty? Have you ever seen the penalty called?
That year, because they'll do a point of emphasis, and they will flag stuff that year, just like with the pass interference when they were going to review that. And you saw against Seattle.
How many times has Jaylen Warren been fined? And how many times was he flagged?
Oh, he never flagged. He got fined multiple times this past year. Yeah.
So it's flavor of the month.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but think about it. Sometimes Steel Dog 88 is exactly right. Sometimes players will do anything. They'll do something that they know is going to be a penalty to keep them from being a touchdown. And then it's up to the ref to actually call it. I mean, how many years ago was that in the NFC Championship game, of why the whole reason they made pass interference a challengeable play? Because even the defender said, I was beat. I wasn't going to let him score the touchdown, so I'm going to interfere. Then I assume I'm going to get called, but there's a chance I'm not. Guess what? It didn't get called, and they didn't score a touchdown. If I don't do that, they score the touchdown. Yeah. So bottom line is just, I don't ever like to see players get hurt, ever, for any team. I want teams to have all their players to be able to be out there to play. I'd rather beat them at their best than have to listen to, they were resting their players the entire offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, we talked about a lot of news. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers' plan potentially being set with 4 weeks until the NFL draft. We'll do some Steelers trivia and more. If you're watching live on YouTube, Twitter, or X, and Facebook, we're not going anywhere. On the audio side, we'll be right back after this break. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back to the second half. I do have to ask you guys a question. I put this in our Slack channel earlier. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. Did anyone else watch the Instagram reel that I sent that was from Marlon Humphreys, his podcast on his reaction to Patrick Queen joining the Steelers? Did anyone else get to see that?
You have to have an Instagram account for it to actually play. So
I did not, because
I
I could not
tried to
open
play
it.
it twice, but I don't have an account, so I did not.
Oh my gosh, it's hysterical. It's so funny because he talked about Patrick Queen reaching out to him and saying, I found a team. And he's like, you chose the Steelers? He goes, dude, it was the perfect situation. He goes, he told him the other team. He didn't say it on the podcast who the other team was trying to get him, but he chose the Steelers. He thought it was the best situation for him. He goes, are you serious? And then his other safety, what is his name, that went to the Bengals? Gosh darn it, I can't remember his name now.
Oh,
He-
gosh. Stone. Was it Geno
yeah,
Stone?
yeah. Geno Stone. He went to the
Western
Cincinnati
PA
Bengals,
guy, right?
and he
Think
was
so,
just,
yeah.
I mean, the Ravens have lost a lot of players, especially on the defensive side. And and he talks about that, he goes, this is unbelievable. I thought it was hysterical, but that's because Patrick Queen's not a member of the Steelers. But he said he goes, let me play offense just one time, and I want to crack Patrick Queen. And then his host, who is kind of like the Mark Bergen to Ike Taylor, says, but that means Patrick Queen could also hit you. And he goes, yeah, he's a lot bigger than me. I don't know if I want to do that.
I love it. I love the fact that he feels like he's the villain.
Yeah.
And
Well, he has to be.
and he's wearing it as a badge of honor. That's something. Hey, this is great. It's gonna make the best rivalry in the NFL and maybe one of the top 5 in all of sports. Even so much better in this move. I just absolutely love it, because what also helps this rivalry? How much do you hate Arthur Millette? Now, there's no reason to hate Arthur Millette when he
I
was a
love
Steeler.
Arthur Millette, man. He's the one who gave up the play to end the game to take him out to finish their season.
I get it. I get it. That's true. But I'm telling you what, he's going to be a guy that you love to hate now, because he's a Raven and he is embracing being a Raven and hating the Steelers. Queen is doing the same thing, vice versa. Oh, it's juicy.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be fun. For those that might want to see it, if you have an Instagram account, unlike Dave, go to my Twitter feed at jhartman_PIT. Scroll down a little bit. You'll find it. Click it, watch it, laugh like I did, and you'll enjoy it. So, all right, I'm going to throw it to Bryan. Bryan's the one that thought of the topic for tonight's show. He's going to lead the discussion there and talks of the Steelers draft plan with 4 weeks left.
All right, so exactly 28 days from tonight, the preview is not going to be on, but we will be on with a breaking news roundtable discussing the Steelers' number 1 pick, or the trade that netted them 2 number 1 picks, or the trade that netted them more 2nd or 3rd round picks and them not picking a guy at all. Because with Omar Khan, there's nothing off the table now. Anything could happen with Omar Khan. So the reason that we have this topic tonight is there's 4 weeks left. Is it time for the Steelers brass to say, all right, we have who we have, now let's finish the rest in the draft? Where do you think they're going in the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, just positionally?
No, when I say where do you think they're going, are they content now?
No.
Is their draft plan set? Or is
Yeah,
it still?
I was going to say,
change?
say the title of the show, and I was just going to say, is the Steelers draft plan set with 4 weeks until the draft? No.
Show's over, folks. Thanks.
Yes. Good night,
See you next
everyone. Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses.
I mean, I wrote an article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com that ran today, Thursday, and it was direct quotes from Mike Tomlin down in Florida at the owners' meeting, saying they realized that slot cornerback is still a position that they need to address.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll address it in the draft, but that's on top of center. There's still some centers out there. You have offensive tackle, which I don't think is as high a need as some people make it out to be. But yeah, you talk about slot cornerback. Some would even say safety. I don't think they're going to go safety because of DeMonte KZ still being on the roster. But I know. I think they still have plenty of moves to make. And I'd even say wide receiver is a position they could still add too. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Bryan, do you think the over under? Are you taking the under of 0.5? Not of, I guess, announced not by the Steelers, but rumored to come to the Steelers, reportedly coming to the Steelers. Are you taking the under on the 0.5 between now and 4 weeks from now? I'm not. The only question is, are they doing something? Are they doing something significant enough to really change what they would do in the draft? My answer is yeah. Those options are on the table all the way up to it. I'm pretty sure. I hope I got the day of the week right. I'm pretty sure, not last year, but the year before, the Steelers signed Terrell Edmunds 2 days before the first night of the draft.
It was close to that.
They
Yeah.
were doing, I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday. I mean, I'm going from memory. I hadn't looked it up or anything. That they'll still keep everything on the table. And there'll still be stuff on the table for after the draft as well.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to talk about that Edmonds year because I have a feeling that even though they waited until right when the 7th round was ending to announce, or the agent of DeMonte KZ announced it, I think that was probably on the table before the draft that year to go ahead and sign KZ. I think they made decisions knowing that he was coming in.
Yeah, because he was announced when we're doing, that was on Saturday when we're doing the potential
Undrafted
free agents and everything, and all of a sudden, boom! Well, there's a safety there too. Yeah.
Well, hell, last year they signed Shandon Sullivan during the draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right.
It was during the draft. Like, I think it was on day 3. Things are winding down, and all of a sudden, like, Tom Pelissero and the Steelers signed Shandon Sullivan. Like, what? That's not what Shandon Sullivan? Who? And next, I'm writing an article
about that, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And how unsexy was the Shandon Sullivan pick? Nobody was excited about that whatsoever. And you know what? He came up big for them
early and was solid for the rest of the year. Yeah.
In that final stretch, he was valuable.
He's still on the open market, and Mike Tomlin even said Patrick Peterson is still an option, but he said not right now. He's going to be a guy that you would sign after the draft if you exhaust all your options.
For all you know, they already have a little cool guy handshake going on. Say, you know what, we're going to release you. You know what, we're not going to pay you nearly as much, but you're not going to have to be there for our training camp.
It's your decision, Pat,
and off season stuff. Let's say, and then you can come back. It's not going to be for as much, but we'll be all right if you're not there for training camp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We value you. We think we can get you around.
I'm just saying it's a possibility.
No, I would double down on you and say I bet that happened.
No.
I would say too that the draft plan is set, but I think that they know that they have work to do before they can execute said plan. I think they know where they want to. They've probably already looked at what potentially could happen. So let the tackles. There's a run on tackles early. Do we go center? Do we go Jackson Powers Johnson? Do we trade back if there's someone that wants to come up? That type of stuff is just drilled. I mean, once these pro days start wrapping up, which will happen in a couple weeks, that's when they hunker down and they're like, okay, we are going to go over every possible scenario. And I think they know positions of need, where they fit in the hierarchy. And so I think from that aspect, the plan is set. They just know that they have some work to do for insurance purposes, especially at a position like center where they don't have a center on the roster. And that was acknowledged as well down in Florida by, I think, both Armar Khan and Mike Tomlin when they said, we know we have this gaping hole. We know we have to fill it, and hopefully it's someone that's capable. Would you guys be okay with Mason Cole returning on a cheaper deal? Not that he would, but if he was offered.
Usually it'd be disappointing, but it'd be better than where they are now.
Right.
I would put it, Bryan.
Yeah, you know what? I would have to be okay, but I would hate it because there's the potential to still have some damage with him there. Because look, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. I'd like to drink a Fresca with him, I'm sure, and talk about his time in Pittsburgh. I'm sure he's a fun guy. We could do some selfies. I'm sorry, ussies together. We could do some stuff like that. But I don't really think that I want him as my even my backup center, because if he comes back, he's probably your starting center regardless of who you draft until at least week 3 or 4. And that scares me at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see.
So,
go ahead, Dave.
Can I ask you a quick question then?
Yeah.
What are your, and say them in because I have an answer in my mind, and you can put them in order that you would prioritize them. What are your positions? I'm thinking top 3 that you feel the Steelers should do something before the draft. And which one do you think is most important, next important, and the next?
Okay. So top 3, you said?
Yeah.
Center is number 1 for me.
Yeah.
I would say that Patterson signing really changes a lot for me. I'd say a tackle is another one for me, and I would be okay if they were to get another inside linebacker as well. That'll be my top 3.
So you would like those positions before the draft?
I forgot about cornerback. Gosh darn it. Let's bump inside linebacker and put cornerback in there.
Okay. Bryan?
Center, corner, tackle. And notice wide receiver is not on my list.
Center, corner, wide receiver, because I don't know that everything they have is enough. Tackle, I did the article today from the website. Go big or go home. If you're going to actually make an improvement over Dan Moore at tackle, it's going to cost a lot. And I don't think free agency is the place to do that. I think the place to do it is in the draft, and I think it's the place to do it is high in the draft. I'm not even talking round 3. Is a round 3 tackle even going to be an upgrade over Dan Moore?
Yeah.
So, and I know, and I talked about how a lot of players are down on. Rich and I talked about this a lot on Tuesday. But to me, I think tackle is almost a waste in free agency, because to get a decent one, you're going to have to pay a lot. And if you're going to just get one in that's a body, you have a couple really good prospects on the team right now in Dylan Cook and Kellen Deesh. And even if you want to have Spencer Anderson play out at tackle. So that's why tackle's like the last thing I want to see them sign at free agency is a tackle.
And that's the thing, is we have no idea how they view some of those players like Dylan Cook and Spencer. I mean, Spencer Anderson was active for every game last year. Yeah. So they definitely value him in some way, but what position? The dude plays every position along the offensive line. So we don't know, and we're not privy to that information, but if they're really high on some of those tackles, they won't even look at a tackle, maybe in the draft, maybe in a first round, and like a Mims.
I would love a first round tackle again. That's what I'm secretly hoping for. I'm okay if they don't, but if they do, I'm going to get really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So
would you be excited? I'm sorry, Jeff. Would you be excited with a first round corner? Because I would.
Yeah, if it's the right corner. Oh, if it's
Elliott
Mitchell out of Toledo.
Oh, they love him.
Because the thing that's great about him is he could start off as a slot and evolve into outside, because he could do it all.
Quinyon
Elliott? Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell, but
Terrion
Elliott's the Alabama kid.
Yeah. So he would be my favorite that could maybe be at 20, but that dude could go at 10 drawn up. But I'm like, if he's around and they get him, that'd be great. There's several tackles that I think are great.
How'd you like Kool-Aid in round 3?
It's funny. Kool-Aid was at first mocked to the Steelers in round 1. I covered him on a mock draft Monday early on.
I think he was your first mock draft Monday.
No, my first one was Mims, which I was hoping the pattern continues, because last year, my very first one last year was Broderick Jones.
Oh, nice.
So I was hoping that, by doing Mims and there's a lot of people were down on Mims because he hadn't started a lot of games. He has had a lot of quad injuries or whatever, but he's just another guy I like the guy from, I can't even say his last name, starts with that, from Washington. Flaga or whatever it is. Or I don't know. But there's several tackles out there that I'd be like, all right. But if they went center in round 1, I would not complain. Because let me ask, if you want them, because I said it several years ago when it was even Creed Humphrey was like, well, 1 could be too soon for him. I'm like, if he's your guy and you're convinced he's going to be your guy, get him. I'm okay with that.
Let me ask you this real quick. What if the weirdest thing happens and a guy like Brock Bowers falls to number 20? Do you run up and grab him, or you go for me?
I'm sitting by the phone
calling
waiting for someone to call.
What's a tight end
To trade
behind
for him.
me and
Yeah.
move back 3 or 4 spots? That's
Now
what
that
I'm
would
doing.
suck. It would suck if the Kansas City Chiefs pick up the phone and say, "Oh, Brock Bowers is there at 20. Travis Kelce is nearing the end of his career. Let's get him." And they say we'll trade up, and that would be tough. But at the same time, it could happen. So
See,
yeah,
that's why the trade up, trade back thing is so tough, because you never know who's going to be there longer than you thought. And is it some, remember, Steelers best player available at a position of need is kind of the way that the way you kind of wrap that up now. Not that they've definitely said that's exactly how they do it, but it's what it feels like. If it's one of those positions that Kevin Colbert talked about it before he was gone, there are certain positions that you're taking off your board simply because you don't have to go there. Well, if the player that's falling is one of those positions that you don't need, that's your opportunity to trade back. But you're not going to know that until everything rolls around and everything's fallen into place.
I used to love when Kevin Colbert would address the media prior to the draft, and they would say, "What are you thinking about positions?" He goes, "Every position except for quarterback is an option." I used to love that. We have one of those quarterbacks. This is so great. And now you're
Wouldn't
just
it be
hoping, you're just hoping that they finally find someone.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Justin Fields. Maybe it's Russell Wilson. At this point, I don't care. Just get us out of quarterback purgatory so that Omar Khan can say at the combine or before the draft, every position except for quarterback is on the table for us at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, all right. I do want to. Yeah, it is. I do want to do something. So Dave mentioned this on Tuesday. YouTube, for all the great things that they've done for us and what we've done for them by proxy. We are not monetizing any of our work, not by our choice. Let's just put it that way. And so super chats are not available anymore, and they won't be available till the earliest of June. Don't ask. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. So June is when we can get those super chats back. So if people ask questions, sometimes I do like to bring those up because we still want to keep that interactive aspect of the show. So Bruce has asked a couple questions that I think we could answer quickly that he's just put in the live chat. Bruce, I think it's McGill. If I mispronounced that, my apologies. He said, "Do any of you know what Chuks Okorafor said that cost him his job?" So I have heard the reports that it was, what game was that, guys? That
Jacksonville.
Jinx. He said, "If we're going to play like this, just kneel down the entire game. Like, just take a knee the whole game." Because
was it after Mitch Trubisky's first fourth quarter interception or second fourth quarter?
I don't know, but he
I don't know.
yeah.
That's what I don't know. I don't know the timing of when he said it. He could have said it with a minute left. I don't know.
Tomlin heard it and he was not happy. So
yeah.
That's the report. That's the report. I've never asked our source to see if that was validated. I really didn't care. Bruce asked another one here. He said, "Have the Steelers announced yet who is going to take Bill Hillgrove's job?" I have not seen that announcement at all yet. Bryan, have you?
No, it has not. There were some rumors, but hardly any. It's really hard to even guess right now. I mean, they threw some names out there at the very beginning, and everything has been hushed. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're going to hear real soon that it's Jeff Hartman.
That would be awesome.
Hey, we're still gonna do that in June or so. We're gonna still try to do a game.
Wait, no, not a Steeler game. We need to do like just pick a random Thursday night instead of the preview. Just
Hall of Fame game.
Just let me do not the Hall of Fame game, because I'm gonna have to find the players. Like, I at least want to know the teams well enough that I don't have to look down at a piece of paper and say, "Who the hell is this fifth string running back in the game in Canton, Ohio?" I have no idea.
The Friday night opener in Brazil.
Oh, no, I'm not doing that on Friday night.
In fact, we could go to Brazil and broadcast from there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Jeff, open up the checkbook.
Yeah, sure. Who's the
Who's the name of the guy that filled in for Hillgrove when he got suspended?
That's who I've heard the most. Something King, right?
Yeah. In fact, Rob King.
Yeah,
He's done a lot of pirate stuff, and I think he at one point was in Johnstown at WJAC 15, 20 years ago. I think I remember him starting his career there. Yeah, Rob King's good.
Yeah, he's very good. I think Sherry Richards said Greg Brown, who is he alternates the play-by-play between radio and television for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He would be such a great announcer for football because he's so excitable. And Bill Hillgrove was great. But hey, when you're the Steelers play-by-play guy on the radio, you can be a homer. You don't have to just call it straight up. You can be a homer. So that would be awesome. I would love
Do
to
you
see
know, Jeff and Dave, this is a quick trivia question. It's not my trivia question, but do you know what famous call that Greg Brown was a part of?
In baseball?
No, in football.
No.
I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. I was checking something. I have noticed that there have been a couple videos done on Steelers.com by that down there with Rob King.
Yeah, he was doing the
that
one-on-one.
makes me think that are they kind of getting his name there a little bit more to move in that. Sorry, I wanted to verify what it was. What was your question again, Bad?
So Greg Brown was a part of one of the most famous, I don't want to say plays, but one of the most famous games in football history. And he was on the call when the game ended, and he was so excitable. So I don't know if you know which one that is, but
I don't even know who Greg Brown is. I don't.
Oh my gosh, you'd know to hear his voice if you've seen
the
Pirates
broadcaster.
I don't listen to the Pirates. So
if you've seen a highlight, you've heard Greg Brown's voice.
Cannonball coming. Well, anyway,
Cruise missile.
Who was it? Blast. That's the only one I know.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was a former player who did color. Yes.
So Greg Brown was on the call when the Buffalo Bills completed that amazing comeback in the snow in the wild card game with Frank Reich when they were down like 35 points to the Houston Oilers.
Okay.
And the call was just amazing. And you just hear him yelling and screaming and singing in the background. And that was 31 years ago.
That's crazy. And Dave, if you were to look up, I think it's 2015. This was right before the All-Star break. Andrew McCutchen hit a walk-off home run against the St. Louis Cardinals.
St. Louis, yep.
It is one of the best calls on the baseball side that I have heard ever. And you just feel like he's in it. He's there. He's living it. He's wanting this to happen. And he just goes absolutely berserk. That went to extra innings. Yeah, it was a walk-off.
Oh, that was an amazing game. I
think it was 2015.
I can tell you it was 2015 because I was retiling the bathroom and watching it and listening to it at the same time. And the bathroom's right across from us.
There you go. So, all right, good stuff. And we'll keep everyone apprised of that as it comes about. I'm sure the Steelers are going to take their time. A little known fact is that Bill Hillgrove's grandson is actually a sports commentator at WTOV9 in Wheeling, West Virginia. So he actually is following in his grandfather's footsteps. I don't think that's going to lead to him getting the Steelers job, but he actually interviewed his grandfather for Steelers.com, which is actually a really cool interview. Yeah.
That was good.
All right, Bryan, you have trivia. Go for it.
Quick trivia here. So the news today, and it's not really big news, but the news that Justin Fields will be wearing the number 5, and a lot of people up in arms. One of us that did not care about that whatsoever was Dave Schofield. He did not.
Unless you're buying a jersey, why did it really matter? I'm sorry. I just don't know why people cared so much. It's okay.
Brian cared.
In the history. You know what? I almost clicked buy it now on a number 1 jersey last night around 2 a.m. I'm like, nah, I'm just going to sleep on it. I'm glad I did it. In the history of the Steelers, in regular season games, only 11 players have worn number 5. So I'm not going to ask you who the last one was. Who are the 2? They're tied. The 2 longest tenured number 5s.
Longest tenured? That's
Dude, I only know the last one, and Joshua Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs. Was Bruce Gronkowski number
He
5?
was, yeah.
Bruce
That's a
was,
good one,
yeah.
Dave.
Thomas
Thomas Riley chimes in with Terry Hanratty.
He is one of them.
Okay.
Really?
Terry, 6 years. And so the other player was 6 years. And I will tell you that other number 5 had a
Was it Josh Miller? Was he? No, he wasn't number 5, was he?
that
Oh,
other number.
Jerry Cherry Van got it. Dick Shiner. That's what it is.
It was not Dick Shiner's number 17, Jerry and Jeff.
Ah,
But Sherry
dear.
Richards, I was gonna say that there's a
Craig
legacy
Colquitt.
Steeler that recently that didn't last long. Yeah, Craig Colquitt was the punter for a few Super Bowls as well. He wore number 5.
Oh, yeah.
They are the longest tenure. Dobbs was not here for 6 years.
No.
So
3? Something like that?
yeah, yeah, roughly. Yeah. The
Two,
hope
and then
is
he left and he came back.
the hope is that Justin Fields becomes a longer tenured number 5.
That is the hope.
That means he's good.
My question would is Dobbs 3rd on the list? Believe it or not, because I can't think of other number 5s that really stuck around for.
Actually, there is besides Dobbs, yeah, he's close, but the other one on that list that, yeah, I guess it is Dobbs, would be like number 3 on there. You've got, I don't know if you remember the punter for the 2008 Steelers, Paul Ernster. He was there for a little bit. He wore number 5. There's not a lot of names on this list, so Dobbs would be
That's what I
number
was
3.
thinking. I thought Dobbs might be number 3
Yeah, Dobbs is number 3.
All right.
because I know
Is that it?
Gronkowski. He was only a year, but I remember him.
Yeah.
I just remember a picture of him and remember that in my brain where I see the number 5. That's it.
Is that it, Brian? That's your only
That's
trivia?
it. Short and
Perfect.
sweet.
Interesting.
All right, Dave, go ahead.
All right. Well, if you listen to Steeler Stat Geek today, you might have an idea of where I was like, man, I'm listing off all this stuff. This would have been great for trivia. That's exactly what I said during the show. And what was I talking about? I was talking about members of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was actually looking for 2 players on the same team that had rushed for 750 yards or more, because that's what happened with last year with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. If you want to know more about that, go back, listen to that this morning. That was some good stuff. So I'm like, oh man, this would have been really good trivia. So then I decided to go and say, all right, I'll just shift to receiver and I'll look at 1,000-yard seasons. And that is, how many times have the Steelers had 2 1,000-yard receivers in the same season? Doesn't have to be wide receivers, just receiving yards. Well, I'll tell you, they were wide receivers, so it doesn't. Any idea?
Is this all time or merger?
Yeah,
or
all
what?
time. But think
Yeah.
about it in the NFL. Are you going to be going back to the 50s? Probably not.
Well, with the one that 2001 pops out really fast for me, and it's Hines Ward and Plexico Burress, who had almost identical catch numbers and yard numbers within a couple, but they were both right over 1,000.
Yes,
the question
that is
was,
one.
The question was how many, right?
Yes.
I'm going to say 5.
Well,
That
we'll
might
just
be
stop
high.
right there because that's correct, Jeff.
Hey! All right, I'm done.
Yep. And 2001 was actually the first time it happened.
Okay.
The other
So
4
when-
are all since.
Was 2017 one year?
It
Did
wasn't.
Juju go over 1,000?
Not his rookie year.
Okay.
Which was
2018?
2017. It was
Yeah, I would say-
2018.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
was
I
the
would
most
say that.
recent. So
So
you
we've
have
got 2 out of 5.
Yep. So you have 2001 and 2018.
I would say Santonio and Hines did it, and let's go ahead and say that would be 2009.
2009 is correct. Santonio Holmes and Hines Ward.
So that's
Who
3.
left?
We had Antonio and Juju.
Martavis Bryant never got 1,000.
He did not.
Okay, let's go with Hines and Wallace. So let's go ahead and say 11.
I was going to say 2010.
Let's go with 2010. Yeah, I like that, Jeff.
Well, I want to say this. Bryan, go with your first instinct, but wrong player.
Wallace.
It is 2011.
Wallace and Cotchery.
It was Wallace and Brown.
Maybe.
Brown. Oh.
The Young Money
2011.
crew.
Yeah. And I will be honest with you, the one you guys are missing is another year right along that was right next to a year you've already said, and it was the same two players.
Wallace and Brown?
No.
Hines and Santonio in 08?
No, it was actually Hines and Burrs in 02.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
They both went over 1,300 yards in 02.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you think about it, based on this, so I guess in 2001 you were talking. There's been three Steelers quarterbacks to have two receivers go over 1,000 yards. They're Ben Roethlisberger, Tommy Gunn in 02, and I guess technically Cordell Stewart in 01. Right? He was the quarterback in 01. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a follow-up question if you guys want to do it, or we can call it a show and we can save it for another time.
Is it quick? A quick hitter, or is this a long one?
It's probably longer.
All right. It's been a good show.
So we'll guess what? I don't have to look up trivia for next week.
There you go. Love it. Let's do some final thoughts. Bryan, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to be really quick. I'm going to go ahead and quote an author that I've never heard of, but I've heard this quote before. His name is Dennis Whatley. And Dennis Whatley was born in 1933. So this was way back a long time ago when he had this quote. I heard it in a church service once, and I absolutely love it. It goes like this. I had the blues because I had no shoes, but then upon the street, I met a man who had no feet. Bottom line to it, feel the way you want to feel about your Pittsburgh Steelers. They might not have shoes, but the Browns, the Bengals, so many other teams, they ain't got no feet.
All right, good stuff, Dave. Final thoughts.
Yeah. Hey, sorry that I'm a little bit frustrated with people overreacting. What I feel is overreacting to the rules and whatnot. And you know what? That's where we are in the NFL season. We're in the overreaction period. We're either falling in love with or completely hating the players that the Steelers bring in. My father was asking me, "Hey, what do you have your finger on the pulse of the fan base? How do they feel about the two quarterbacks they brought in?" I'm like, "Well, probably a pretty even 25% split from what I've seen. 25% of the people love them both. 25% of the people think Wilson's washed up, but Fields is the guy. 25% of the people think that Wilson, he's got the great resume and he's going to do everything. And it was a waste with Fields because he's proved he isn't it. And there's about 25% that think they both are terrible." That's kind of where we are right now. I don't know if it's really those amounts, but you've heard all four opinions, I'm sure, one place or the other. This is what we're in. We're in the opinion portion of the offseason. I'm getting ready. I'm really excited for 4 weeks to now to get into let's get excited about the new members of the Black and Gold season, because although I don't dive into the draft like many others do and know the name of every prospect and this, that, or the other, I get excited knowing that you'll hear the name called and you've got someone that, well, supposedly will be on the Steelers for at least the next 4 years. Although it's kind of how many of the Steelers' number one draft picks they still got left on the team? They only got 4 of first round draft picks left on the team right now that were drafted the first round by the Steelers. Right. But I'm just excited to see, because to me, the draft is where you're building for not just this year, but for the future. And that's what gets it really exciting. And I can't wait for that to get here. So that way I can know who I can finally fall in love with.
All right. So I'm going to test your all's sports movie knowledge here. You know, Bryan quoted a poet. I'm going to quote a poet, one Lewis Brown, who once said, starting to come together, Pepper. It's starting to come together. And that can be said about the Steelers offseason. It can also be said about the battling Buccos, who are going 162-0. Here we go. The Pirates win. So that's Lou Brown, manager Lou Brown, who also sold tires in the offseason. Okay. You called about some white walls, Bryan? Is that it? No, it's not okay.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
One of the greatest sports movies of all time. All right. Good show, guys. We'll be back next week. Dave, why don't you send us out like we always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week. Take it easy, everyone.